Action! 1. Start!
Well, good morning, you beautiful people. Welcome back to the next episode of Games, the show where we throw away the marketing and focus only on game design and all such stuff that's usually disregarded by everyone. But today, let's start with some off-topic. You know, there is a thing in psychology, it's called Gestalt. English-speaking folks usually butcher it and say something like Gestalt or even worse, but it's a German word and I think it should be pronounced as such. It has established in the late 19th century as a psychological and philosophical term, you know. It's actually a term, and it was widely debated at that point what a Gestalt is. Well, eventually it settled down to a pretty complex concept of experiencing things in general. You know, when you experience something, you can sit there and analyze what sensory stimuli generated what response. Which one was voluntarily, which was not. Which was spontaneous, which was not. But is it everything you have experienced at that point? Can you make sure that if you make similar stimuli to generate same responses, you will get the same experience? And that's when Gestalt comes in, with one of its major principles. Gestalt is more than a sum of its elements. It is much more. It's not easy to quantify this statement, but it definitely works. It works in the experimentation field. And yeah, you can try this at home, just be cautious, will ya? Okay. But the real question is, what will happen if you get the sum of the Gestalt components just right? What will happen if you have total control of the situation and you can predict with close to 100% probability what response will you get? Can you really make a Gestalt out of the components? Well, psychology says that you cannot, and you shouldn't try again and again, because every time you finish the experimentation, you get at least one very confused person. But it's all just mental experimentations, and some experimentations that were made in mid-20th century. Shouldn't there be more, let's say, modern approach to the thing? Well, let us make our own experiment. Let's imagine if we suddenly discovered a thing that can make people feel cathartic by watching how imaginary entities perform imaginary tasks. And, since we're imagining things, let's imagine that we have means to take the experimentation subject to feel one of those entities by giving the subject some control over them. The subject will experience all emotional spectrum possible and probably will have a lifelong memory of the experiment. And then we can try and replicate the experiment. Can we replicate it? Well, we can totally try to. Let's get the crucial parts out of the first one. Okay? Okay, we have imaginary entities. Got it. Let's make them prettier though. Well, more pleasant to look at, because some experiment subjects in the first run of the experimentation lost interest and asked to stop the experiment. Probably more pleasant entities to look at is what we need. Probably. Well, in any case, let's do this. So, more pretty entities. Checked. Now, there was a full spectrum of emotional response. Oh, bummer. How do we get this? Well, let's not experiment much with the process of creating the emotional bond between the subject and the entity they control. it is pretty much expensive for us to do. Let's not do this, let's go straight to the standard emotional response. Say, we have some pretty nice emotional responses. Let's say parent-child relationship. It is always emotional, it never fails, and if it fails, there are societies that force you to acknowledge it, at least. So yeah, parent-child relationship, that will be great. That will make our subject to bond faster with the entity, to bond more firmly with the entity. And yeah, we can just mention it. We don't need to make some art of the bonding, we can mention it and there we go. So, we're saving time and money by using the existing psychological response. And don't forget that this psychological response is one of the most powerful. So, it's a win-win situation. Why not use it always? But then there goes another complex part. You see, in the first experimentation, entities had some tasks to perform, and the subjects took the part in the performing of those tasks. Well, actually, they must take the part in performing the tasks. Because one thing is just telling person that, hey, you're bonding with those. And the other thing is telling them, hey, you're bonding with those. Now go get the group project together. It's the whole other thing. It brings next level of complexity to the bonding. So we have to take the tasks. And you know, this part is tricky. This part is very tricky. In the first experimentation, some subjects claimed that the tasks were too complex, and they asked to stop the experiment, and we had to stop it. But we need more subjects, we need the experiment to become bigger, to have more data collected. I think we should do less complex tasks, more easy tasks. And yeah, if some people are going to tell us that, hey, the tasks are boring, they are just tedious, we can always remind them. We can use the same parent-child bonding. That people aren't doing these tasks for something. They are doing it for the child figure, child entity. And the tasks will be less boring. This is also a working concept. Now, since we've got all the parts we need, the real question is, will the second experiment deliver us the same results? As we already know, the psychology will say no. And when we try to add but there is, the answer is still no. And the science can add stop asking. You know, psychology is like that. But do you yourself think that we will get the similar results with the second experiment? Well, it's a nice time to think about it. If you need time, pause right now, come back later when you have the idea if the second experiment will be just as successful as the first one. So, did you make up your mind? Good. Then let's continue. Never the second experiment will bring us the success because we never replicated the first one properly. Yes, we made sure we have the same sensory stimuli, but we didn't care about the gestalt. We didn't care about the whole of the project. We just replicated the stimuli. And thankfully, we don't actually need to make the experimentation with our bare hands because, you know, those clever contraptions that were used there, they are actually here, and we can just watch how did they perform with the general public. You know, you can just watch and see how well did the games did in their life cycle. Take, for example, any classic video game, And by classic, I mean really classic, not just old one. It can be from the 90s, it can be from the 80s, it can be from anywhere. Well, I mean anywhere before the AAA publishers went into the big boys business and stopped caring about the delivering the experience. Before that, it was experience. It was something artistic. It was something emotional. It was the whole project that was made to deliver you something. Yeah, I mean, I'm taking off the pink glasses here all the way. There were garbage games at every time. There were a lot of garbage games. And I mean, a lot of garbage games. But, we all knew the gems. Because we like to share the experience. Because all those games were such wholesome experience that we couldn't stand but get out there and tell our friends, "Hey, did you see that new game?" Wink wink. And yeah, look at the modern sequels of the same games. They have the parts in them. Yeah, they have the parts alright. But they lack something. They lack something that made the older games the gems they were, or rather, they are. I could speculate that it was a general direction of the development. The older games were made because someone had a grand idea. Someone had a grandiose idea to deliver to you. They have it in mind and they wanted to share. And they wanted us to experience this idea. They have a means of rewarding us for experiencing the idea in the fullest. The older games were made because somebody wanted to share. The modern games, well, they usually care about the sales, about the tinkering the parts right, about making sure you have nice visuals, making sure you have something to do, making sure you have the vast world around you. They actually don't have any idea to share. They don't want to share. They are bad boys. They don't want to share and you should not chat with them. Well, yeah, you can call me old-fashioned, but the general thing that developers wanted to share is still here. It's more important than having 4K graphics with a 60 FPS and a billion of guns and having a ray tracing over nothing. If you want to share something, it's more important than having all the graphics in the world. Just there is nothing to share from the companies of AAA publishing. They are not there anymore. It's more of the indie or mid-range games. They have something, they want to share it with you, they have the idea. And you can experience this idea. And some of those games, not all of them, not all of those games, some of those games are really gems. Are really gems because you get more than just a sum of their parts. Well, we just have to find them. We'll just have to dig through them. In any case, with that in mind, let's call it a journey and say farewell to each other till the very next episode. For now, leave your thoughts in the comments, subscribe, do such stuff. I don't know if you wanna. And you can even join the Discord. I'll leave the link somewhere in the description. For today, duck off.